My name is Carlin Borisenko, and you are listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast. You can access full archives of the podcast by heading over to activelyunwoke.com/podcast, and you can also find links to subscribe on whatever major podcast platform floats your boat right now. Today, we're going to be reading an article from my Substack that you can access by going to Carlin, Karlyn.substack.com. You can also get to it by going to activelyunwoke.com/Substack, just in case you don't feel like learning how to spell my first name today. And while you're on the Substack, I hope you'll subscribe. You can subscribe for free. You can also sign up as a paying subscriber for $5 a month, $50 a year. I'd really like to bring in 50 new paying subscribers this month so I can keep the paywall off the site and keep everything free for everyone. So if you have the means to do so, I humbly ask for your support today. And if you can't support me financially, but you still appreciate my work, I'm going to ask you to share it out, tell your friends and family about it. It really does help me out and helps me teach as many people as possible what's going on in the world. So, something crazy happened. I guess it's yesterday now. I'm recording this podcast at 12:30 in the morning, so that would make it yesterday on February 2nd, 2023. Something crazy happened in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it's one of those things that it kind of seems like a small thing. It seems like it's something that, is your typical time waster for Congress and isn't going to amount to anything. And, why are they even bothering to spend time on this? But sometimes it's the small things, the seemingly insignificant things that are actually the most revealing about who people are and where they stand. What just happened in Congress is that 86 elected Democrats voted to support socialism. You heard me right. 86 elected Democrats voted to support socialism. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Let's read what just happened. Some may argue that it seems like a waste of time for Republicans in the House of Representatives to introduce a resolution condemning socialism. I would argue that it was an easy and low-cost way to get a sense of where everyone stands. In my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life, which you can buy at activelyunwoke.com if you're so inclined, I write the following passage. I was a Democrat for 20 years before leaving the party in early 2020 when I came to the realization that they had abandoned the values of individual liberty and freedom that I had joined the party for. I bring this up because when I was a Democrat, and even still today, it drives me crazy when I hear conservatives and Republicans ranting about a socialist or communist agenda in relation to everything the political left wants to do. It's a default excuse they use to oppose something when they're too lazy to come up with a real argument or an alternative solution. However, in this case, they're not actually wrong. I know that for some of you, the threat of socialism or communism might seem silly or cheesy, but in this case, it's real, and you'll understand why as this chapter unfolds. For right now, what you need to know is that wherever you sit on the political spectrum, left, right, center, or off in the land of the politically homeless, this is not one of those times where you should dismiss the idea of a socialist ideology attempting to corrupt our systems. That's literally happening in precisely the way that Soviet defector Yuri Bezmenov told us it would in the 1980s. Look up those videos on YouTube if they haven't censored them yet. That's the end of the passage in the book. Back to the article. These days, I feel like a conspiracy theorist every time I say that the four goals of the woke left are to gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, and usher in their Marxist utopia. It sounds crazy, but I've also never been so sure that I'm right. Week after week for the past 2 years, I've spent my Fridays afternoons streaming Happy Hour, where I go live on my channel and we watch a woke training that has been given at a company, or a lecture given at a college, or a training lesson for teachers, etc. These are not crackpots on the internet. They are people working in an official capacity to spread the message of the woke left through our institutions. And every single week, they talk about abolishing capitalism in some capacity. It doesn't matter what the training is, from organizations to schools, they almost always mention capitalism as the enemy. That's how I know that the real enemy of the woke left is capitalism. Because they will tell you so out loud almost every time they are charged with teaching people in any capacity. You can see for yourself each Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on my channel. Subscribe to join us. You can find it on YouTube. Anyway, so I feel like a conspiracy theorist for even saying this, even though I'm seeing it happen right in front of me every single week. And then today, this vote happened. Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives introduced a resolution to condemn socialism. And 86 Democrats voted against it, with 14 more abstaining by voting present. And I've got here an image of a tweet sent by Representative Mike Johnson. Today in the House, voted to condemn socialism. These are the results. 86 socialists, 14 who can't admit it yet. And he's got a picture of the vote count tally from C-SPAN. 219 yeas from Republicans, no nays. 109 yeas from Democrats. 86 nays. And 14 present. Every single person who voted against the motion was a Democrat. The Democrats who voted against the resolution or who chickened out and voted present are sure to put some spin on why. They'll tell you that Republicans only introduced this to go after their entitlement programs or Obamacare. They are depending on you not taking the time to read the resolution for their story to hold water. So, let's see what they voted against. And this is an actual text of the resolution. It's not very long. It's perfectly readable by anyone with a third grade education. Here is what 86 Democrats voted against. It's titled, Denouncing the Horrors of Socialism. Whereas socialist ideology necessitates a concentration of power that has time and time again collapsed into communist regimes, totalitarian rule, and brutal dictatorships. Whereas socialism has repeatedly led to famine and mass murders and the killing of over 100 million people worldwide. Whereas many of the greatest crimes in history were committed by socialist ideologues, including Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, Daniel Ortega, Hugo Chavez, and Nicolas Maduro. Whereas tens of millions died in the Bolshevik Revolution, at least 10 million people were sent to the gulags in the USSR, and millions more starved in the terror famine in Ukraine. Whereas between 15 million and 55 million people starved to death in the wake of famine and devastation caused by the Great Leap Forward in China. Whereas the socialist experiment in Cambodia led to the killing fields in which over 100 million people were gruesomely murdered. Whereas up to 3.5 million people have starved in North Korea, dividing a land of freedom from a land of destitution. Whereas the Castro regime in Cuba expropriated the land of Cuban farmers and the businesses of Cuban entrepreneurs, stealing their possessions and their livelihoods and exiling millions with nothing more but the clothes on their backs. Whereas the implementation of socialism in Venezuela has turned a once prosperous nation into a failed state with the world's highest rate of inflation. Whereas the author of the Declaration of Independence, President Thomas Jefferson, wrote, "To take from one, because it is thought that his own industry and that of his fathers had acquired too much in order to spare to others who, or whose fathers, have not exercised equal industry and skill, is to violate arbitrarily the first principle of association, the guarantee to everyone of a free exercise of his industry and the fruits acquired by it." Whereas the father of the Constitution, President James Madison, wrote that it is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where the property which a man has in his personal safety and personal liberty is violated by arbitrary seizures of one class of citizens for the service of the rest. And whereas the United States of America was founded on the belief in the sanctity of the individual, to which the collectivist system of socialism in all of its forms is fundamentally and necessarily opposed. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives and the Senate concurring that Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and opposes the implementation of socialist policies in the United States of America. The resolution is very clear. It doesn't mince words, and it's not about entitlements. It's about protecting individualism and the American dream. And 86 Democrats voted against it, with another 14 abstaining from a committed action. You're not a conspiracy theorist. This is really happening. Make sure you know how your representatives voted. You can find a link over at Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. It's at the very bottom of the article. I just don't know what else to say, guys. I really don't know what to say. This is kind of one of those things that should be a no-brainer. Either you're in favor of socialism or you're against socialism. This isn't a gray area. This wasn't trickery. We just read the resolution. And 100 Democrats could not vote to condemn what was in that resolution. 100 Democrats could not bring themselves to say, yeah, this is a really, really, really bad idea. You know, I don't think that the Republican Party is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't. That's why I'm not a Republican. I'm a libertarian. They have their own problems, but that's a different thing for a different day. At least I agree with them more in principle than I do the Republicans. So I'm not suggesting that because 219 Republicans voted for this, that it's that they're the party of righteousness. However, you have to give credit where credit is due. They're saying socialism is bad. Their actions might not always back up that point. We can have that discussion another time. Sometimes they vote for very socialist things. They just tend to do it at a little bit of a slower pace than the Democrats. But at least they all agreed on this. At least they all said, yep, you know, this is, you know, we really, maybe sometimes it can go a little bit too far. 86 Democrats couldn't do it. That's mind-boggling. We are living in a precursor to 1984. I'm absolutely sure of it. And I hate that I feel like a conspiracy theorist, but I am absolutely sure of it. And it's happening right in front of us, and most people don't even see it. If you see it, you have an obligation to teach people. You have an obligation to help wake people up. I will give you all the information I can to help you do that. I promise. I will teach you what this is. I live in this every day. Good or bad. And some days I think I'm going crazy if I'm honest. But we have an obligation to teach people what we know. And not everyone's going to be ready to wake up. That's true. Not everyone is going to be ready right now, but some people are. And they just haven't been shown it in a way that they can process the information. They need you to help them, not to make fun of them, not to ridicule them, not to insult them for not getting there sooner. We need more people to understand what's going on. Please share this information. Please share what you know with your friends. This is a time to be brave and speak up. It is not a battle of left versus right. I don't care where you stand on the political spectrum. I really, really don't. This is a battle of authoritarianism versus libertarianism. And authoritarianism can exist on the political left or on the political right. Either you believe in individualism or you don't. If you ever wondered what you'd be doing during the 1930s in Germany or leading up to the civil rights movement, what you're doing right now is what you would have done then. You know, I remember being in high school and thinking, all the civil rights battles are won. I wanted to be a lawyer. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to law school and then become a First Amendment lawyer and go work for the ACLU and defend the First Amendment. That's all real. And then I kind of thought, all the battles are won. We don't need to worry about it anymore. Civil unions passed in Vermont, where I lived, and when I was in my freshman year of college, I was like, there's nothing else. Oh God, little did I know. Little did I know that in my 40s, 20 plus years later, I'd be begging people to defend our right to free speech. There's a lesson in that about how quickly things can change and about how you should never take anything for granted. 86 Democrats just voted for socialism. They couldn't condemn it. They couldn't say it was a bad idea. Hold on to your hats, folks. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be very interesting.